Hi friends, I'm Bri, I like to read, and this is everything I read in the month of August. The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson. Shirley Jackson is the queen of quietly uneasy domestic evils. Read this collection of essays for a smattering and assortment of general oddities, of prejudices and miasma that are woven together with a very distinct thread. These are short, sometimes funny, and always brilliant stories that are just as understated as they are disturbing. Definitely read this for The Lottery, the title essay. It is a truly brilliant and chilling piece of required reading. Shirley Jackson's particular brand of horror is very subtle and surreal, very layered and eerie. For the first few stories, the reader is left wondering if they missed the horror, if they picked the wrong genre. But then a through line begins to reveal itself, and we start to see the horrors that were there all along. This collection is truly one of the most unique things that I have ever had the pleasure to read. I submit this as evidence that everyday, mundane, ordinary, understated stories are just as sinister and tense and unsettling as the outlandish, the pulpy, and the macabre ones. And of course, the title story, The Lottery, stuns, even 75 years later. Maybe especially because it's been 75 years. You be the judge. I, for one, am a Shirley Jackson fangirl now. Everything Nothing Someone is a memoir for fans of In the Dream House, What My Bones Know, or I'm Glad My Mom Died. And this is a captivating story about a woman unraveling. This is dazzling and searing with visceral writing that is both beautiful and disturbing. And it is a startling look into America's psychiatric complex. Alice had an unconventional upbringing in Greenwich Village, the daughter of wealthy, aloof, and eccentric artists. As a child, Alice begins to lose grasp of herself, and so begins the undercurrent that drags her out into a heavily medicated sea of illnesses and psychosis and mania and disassociation and hospitalizations. Nothing is held back in this very engrossing tale of neglect, of essay, of self-harm, of drug dependency. There's inherited trauma, there's a struggle with identity, and much, much more. I gasped, I laughed, I shuddered. I could not stop reading this. Somehow through it all, this author manages to tell this story with a very deft and nuanced touch, staying raw and grounded even in the lowest lows of her story. At the end of this all, I can't help but wonder if Alice would have survived to even tell her story if she hadn't been born into a very affluent family. And it should go without saying that you absolutely should check the trigger warnings. One of my favorite books of the month by far is A Sorceress Comes to Call by Kingfisher. I cannot believe that no one has personally harassed me into reading Kingfisher. Are they all this good? My entire fall TBR is her works now. Thank you very much. This is a stunning gothic fantasy thriller that is loosely inspired by the Brothers Grimm Goose Girl. It is weird and dark and transportive. There is a cast of enchanting, powerful women. It's got vigilante geese, tons of dark humor, tons of witchy magic, and a sprinkling of romance. Cordelia grows up in a home without closed doors and a horse named Falada as her only companion, along with a controlling mother who happens to be an evil sorceress. After years of being bewitched into stillness and silence and obedience by her mother's cruel powers, think full-on Mother Gothel vibes. One night, Cordelia and her mother steal into the night on horseback. Everything changes when they arrive at the wealthy manor of the squire and his unwed sister Hester, who live in the remote countryside. Her mother has nefarious plans to lure the hapless squire into a marriage, while also minding his kind yet canny sister Hester. Cordelia faces secrets, murder, and magic in this stunning mashup of fantasy, horror, fairy tale, and Regency romance, all with an Agatha Christie-like element. As I was reading this, it felt like it was written for me. It It's a dark fractured fairy tale dripping with gothic fantasy atmosphere. It features an evil sorceress with a twisted familiar and eerie magic. There is Regency era black humor and satire. It features a very anxious, traumatized, meek female main character who is strong, but not in the ways that we can immediately see. And lastly, it has the perfect dose of romance. If you loved A Study in Drowning, One Dark Window, or 10,000 Doors of January, or if you think that gothic fantasy with somewhat sinister vibes sounds like a cozy, delicious treat, then this is screaming, begging, demanding, and bewitching you to please pick it up. If all that sounds like you, then this short little read is perfect for your TBR. Think Disney's Tangled, but make it October. At the end of the day, I'm left wondering if T. Kingfisher is the real sorceress here. I did not want this to end, and I will be picking up Nettle and Bone ASAP. I then picked up Brutes by Dizz Tate. Do I know what on earth happened in this book? No. Do I really know? But it's a vibe. This is about unhinged women, manic teenage angst, and feral female obsession. It is a sinister, summery, swampy tale about girlhood. There is chlorine, sunscreen, and prime Florida creepiness. A girl goes missing in a small town. There may be a monster in the lake, and something evil happens at the Pink House. Plunge into the murky brutality of being a teenage girl, into the vividly sinister, hypnotic haziness, genre-blurring, fever dream feeling of this novel. But don't ask me to tell you what actually happened. This is primarily narrated by a collective group of adolescent girls growing up in Falls Landing, Florida. It sounds weird. It is. I found this to be more poem than prose. This is for fans of The Virgin Suicides and Bunny by Mona Awad, or for people that are totally cool with not knowing what on earth is going on and vibing with it anyway. If you're still feeling the dog days of summer and you want a weird girl book to close it out, this is for you. Next, one of my favorite books this month was The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, and I am so glad that I finally picked this up. With modern, warm, inclusive, deeply thoughtful storytelling, incredible characters, and a gorgeously crafted space opera that takes place in a universe wildly kinder than any I could have ever imagined, Becky Chambers is paving the way for a future of science fiction that just may be the antidote that we need. This is the kind of book that reminds me why I love to read. Meet the eclectic crew of the Wayfarer, a tunneling ship that creates wormholes to facilitate travel across the galactic commons. They embark on a journey through hyperspace, navigating interspecies conflicts, personal challenges, and the vast wonders and dangers of a diverse and wildly unpredictable galaxy. Pick this up for a heart-healing found family story that is just bursting with humor and hope. This is not just science fiction, but also social science fiction. It is deeply philosophical. There is ideological exploration, progressive and thoughtful metaphors. There are aliens that challenge the gender binary. And on top of all that, it's got amazing lore, unique storytelling, and a cosmic scope. Just like the title, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet is charming, delightful, and utterly absurd. And I would wholeheartedly recommend this to every sapient reader in the entire galaxy. 5 out of 5 stars, 6 out of 5 stars. I loved it. Right now, there is a 3-way tie for my favorite book that I read in the month of August, and that tie is between A Sorceress Comes to Call, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and I Was a Teenage Slasher. And I don't know what that says about me. The perfect summer slasher exists, and it takes place in La Mesa, Texas, circa 1989. Being this obsessed with a book that takes place in the Permian Basin from the perspective of a teenage boy with a literal body count was not on my 2024 literary bingo card. But here we are. I am ranting and raving about a story full of pump jacks and grain silos and murderous high schoolers. I love it here. This is exactly what the title says. It is a murderous rampage, stream of consciousness, coming of age account from the perspective of a teenage slasher. This is a meta blockbuster summer slasher / horror that is full of blood and guts, but also full of heart. It's packed with 80s nostalgia. It features a somewhat anthropomorphized small town, tons of homage to horror and slasher Easter eggs, and it's dripping with extremely self-aware humor. Tolly Driver butchered his classmates in a bloody killing spree, and here is his reflection, his confession, his perspective. What unfolds is a gruesome bloodbath, but it's also an emotional and heartrending love letter. This is a love letter to those old VHS tapes that would keep you and your friends at slumber parties in high school up way past your bedtime. This is a love letter to small town West Texas. This is a love letter to the final girl. This is subversive, this is thoughtful, this is absolutely brilliant. And I think that here Stephen Graham Jones is so vulnerable. We're allowed to peer into the creepy basements and dark hallways, behind the doorways where the monsters really lurk. This is a masterpiece. Stephen Graham Jones is a legend among us. It's true. What can I say? And if any of that sounds like your vibe, you should definitely go pick this up. As readers, we really do contain multitudes, and the proof of that is that you can just pivot from a slasher to a rom-com like that. I consider this to be my last hurrah of the summer, and it really hit in the best way. Hot Summer is a sapphic summer rom-com that is set on a reality dating TV show a la Love Island UK. There is delicious drama, sweet friendships, and ultimately it is a steamy, silly, goofy, fun time. I've never seen Love Island, but if it was like this, I would 100% be obsessed. Hungry for career growth, Cash joins the cast of the latest season of Hot Summer. With the intention to win over the public and score a promotion, love is the last thing on her mind. That is, of course, until she meets her hot and sexy, stunning, gorgeous, beautiful fellow castmates. This then unfolds like the scenes of your favorite juicy TV drama. It's sweet, it's sexy, it's completely addictive. I tore through this, and then I immediately sat my reality TV addicted friends down and asked them and quizzed them about what parts of this are actually true. Like, I had no idea that they actually film where everybody sleeps and bring like hot bombshells into the island halfway through the season. Are you kidding me? Unhinged. At the end of the day, Hot Summer was exactly what I expected it to be, and I had a blast. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Expiration Dates by Rebecca Serle. But this is on me. I should know better. Somehow, I've now read 3 books by this author, and it is finally dawning on me that she does not write romance. This is not a romance. I thought this was a romance. It's not a romance, okay? It's not. I know now. If you watched my TBR jar reading vlog, you got to see me realize that in real time. Disappointment unfolding live for your viewing. And you get to see me learn my lesson, that these are depressing and sad every single time. Let me tell you a few things I love about this. First of all, this book has a brilliant premise. Every time Daphne meets a new man, she receives a slip of paper with his name and a number on it, the exact amount of time they will be together. Until 20 years of these numbered papers, she gets one with just a name. No number, just a name. Jake. I think that is a super clever premise, and I love a dose of magical realism. This also has gorgeous depictions of setting. Her writing really just works for me. It's so readable and beautiful. She just made me want to go to Paris and San Francisco and LA. So much love for LA in this book. But now, 3 for 3, the blurbs of these books neglect to mention some sort of dramatic, traumatic, extremely heavy, depressing twist. And I will not give any spoilers, but around the 60% mark, sure enough, there is a major plot twist a little over halfway through that is absolutely not for readers expecting a light, magical, romance-y time. Personally, for me, this plot twist did not work. I thought it was cheap and not earned, and I was not a fan. And I think that if you are going to pick this up, you might check the content warnings and spoil yourself to make sure that it's something that you personally can handle. This is chock full of heavy concepts, unnecessary drama, and repeated attempts at profundity. I do think that this has a target audience though. You will appreciate this if you are a fan of early Taylor Jenkins Reid novels like One True Love and Maybe in Another Life, or if you like The Midnight Library, that sort of vibe. If you're a fan of Me Before You, or if you've read this author's other adult novels and you enjoyed them, then this is 100% perfect for you. If that's your thing, you might enjoy this and you should go for it. I, however, have learned, finally got the lesson that this is not for me. Last but not least, I finally picked up A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. Like the tree, this book grows very slowly, but very beautifully. In this classic, we follow Francie Nolan, a young girl growing up in early 20th century Brooklyn as she navigates poverty, family struggles, and her dreams of a better life through education. We explore themes of resilience, of hope, and the harsh realities of immigrant life in America. This is a very immersive, richly plotted, multi-generational, coming-of-age narrative. It's also a very interesting window into what life was like in Brooklyn a century ago. This is a super ambitious, somewhat autobiographical, great American novel-esque with a ton of literary and historical significance. And I don't really have very many complex thoughts to give you. I actually discovered that Google has a feature that says you visit often because I kept clicking on the Goodreads of this book after I finished it, trying to like read reviews and ascertain how I felt about it or feel any less neutral about it. To no avail. So while I'm generally extremely moved by like multi-generational narrative, great American literature, this one didn't particularly move me. I can acknowledge that it was incredibly well crafted and a really thoughtful piece of literary art, but at the end of the day, I don't really have very many complex thoughts or feelings about that, and that might just be on me. I was far more emotionally impacted by books like Hello Beautiful and The Berry Pickers and The Immortalists, all of which you could argue probably wouldn't have the same impact if it weren't for books like this that came before it, but it also might just be me because this is a very beloved American classic, and I don't see any particular reason why I wouldn't have connected with the characters. I just didn't. So much for my critical thinking skills and incredibly interesting opinions. Well, there you have it. Those are the nine books that I read in the month of August. I had a really great reading month, and I'd love to know in the comments what your favorite books that you read in the month of August were. And I'll see you soon with another video. Bye!